So welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of DHAM DIY. It's going to be a bit of a shorter, more simple video, but the topic pretty important. Making biochar. If you watch some of the other videos, you remember me collecting a copious quantity of small sticks and branches, as well as some bigger logs and other chunks of wood. We just finished up burning the smaller brush, just getting rid of it, getting it out of the way. You know, sure I could have buried it or something, or composted it, but it was really just, it was so much volume, but not a lot of mass, you know, so I just figured burning it, getting a good fire, good bed of coals going, would be the best bet for it. Now, if you remember the mulching with the leaf mold videos, then you'll know that I have a couple bags of just solid like acorns and other stuff that's really no good. I'm planning on burning that stuff. There's a good chance it's going to put out the fire, so what I'm going to do is get some bigger logs on there, some of the bigger, thicker stuff that I want to turn into biochar, and then I'll start throwing that acorns and a bunch of junk on there, and hopefully that will put out the fire and also burn it, you know, kind of two birds, one stone type situation. A real good source of information for biochar would be a YouTuber named Skill Cult. Kind of a similar type of videos. Go subscribe to him. He's a good guy. Like monotonous in the best way possible, you know, would be a good description of it. It's more focused on information and you know, like the wisdom aspect of things, rather than the film, you know, quality and all that, you know, the stuff that's not so important, at least, you know, in my opinion. But you know, the nice statish stuff, he kind of strays away from that, what it seems at least, and I like that, you know. I watch videos for information most of the time. Entertainment, you know, it's kind of like getting entertained while you're learning stuff, so, you know, cool guy. And that's kind of how, you know, direction of this channel, I guess. So anyway, point being, bringing him up, he shows a lot of different ways of you know, experimental ways to make biochar. One of them being, you know, burying the stuff in dirt, or putting a big metal steel sheet over the fire and then burying it, you know, a bunch of using water, things like that. I have an idea. I'm going to use these wood chips that I have. They are soaked and very thick and heavy, you know. These wood chips are almost half decomposed. I'm going to try scooping that on the fire once it's raging, and then hoping that it smothers the fire and then makes, you know, us a bunch of beautiful charcoal. Also, with the branches and smaller twigs, I was feeding them fast and faster and faster. And what it seemed like it was doing was burying the coals with more ash and coals, to where it's almost smothering the fire with more fire. You can see that's a really big pile for like just burning twigs, you know. It's thick and has a lot of mass. It hasn't burned down to ash completely, otherwise it'd be really thin. So I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing some massive logs on this thing, and we're going to get it really roaring if it wasn't already. And I might push some of the smaller brush in there, condense it a little bit, but yeah, you know, making biochar, let's try it out. Okay, so let's see, make sure that's straight. That's pretty good. Okay, so we got a really raging fire right now, like sunburn type of fire. And I got our got all this stuff here we need to, well, this one's mostly leaves. Now there's a lot of seeds in here, there's a whole lot of seeds. Yes, I'm gonna start throwing these leaves on there and just see what happens. Ooh, crispy. Got it. Acorn City.
Okay, so really all what's going on here, we're making biochar in, a really similar way to just about any way you could see, right? Just smothering a fire that's burning and preventing it from, the inevitable reaching ashes, right? Um, what we're doing though that I think is unique is using yard waste like leaves, wood chips, and acorns above all things to smother the fire. And it didn't actually end up working too well. We came back, I think, about 3 days later, and the fire was like full-fledged burning. It was pretty scary in reality. Now, I think that's just due to the fact that we didn't smother it good enough. Um, this is knocking out a lot of birds in one stone, if you will, and that's what this channel is all about, as you know. So, uh, yeah, we're turning acorns into inviable charcoal so they don't sprout and weed out your garden. We're making biochar, and we're also smothering the fire from, you get what's going on here.
I breathed in some of that acorn fume, and it did something to me. I don't know what it did, but like, man, that really hit me hard. Yeah, thank you. It's the first one, I think. It's sort of holding the bullshit. Okay, so this is just about simmered down. It's really warm in there. We threw really just a ton of acorns and just leaves and wood chips, a bunch of just yard waste on top of this fire, and then started smothering it slowly with water, and it was almost like it was boiling all of those acorns, which is what we want, right? We don't want these acorns to be viable, right? We we don't want the acorns to be viable. We want them to kind of die and decompose faster, rather than sprouting and going through that process. We're going to open this up now and check out how it's doing. Okay, so not on fire necessarily, but definitely charred up. I think that's pretty darn good. Let's give it a little whacking. Dig in there.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, this charcoal, this was not even close to being done. Like 3 days later, this was full-fledged burning. We lost a very incredible amount of mass from that. If we had been there, we would have obviously put more water on it. I dumped probably 30 gallons or something of water into this this thing. Anytime I saw smoke, I just get that watering can you see in the background and dump some water in. And I mean, I don't know. I think it was just so intensely hot in the middle that no matter how much water we put in, it would just immediately evaporate or it would just run off of it, you know, off to the sides and into the pond, which brings me to some really interesting videos that are about to come out regarding ponds and charcoal, but we're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to talk about this biochar we're making. So our big problem with the garden, and there's a lot of videos that aren't out quite yet. What was happening is we were using these leaves, and you can see in the top right corner of the screen all the oak trees that have spread from that leaf mold pile. I mean, it's literally growing, and that's a good thing because we're gonna, you know, transplant those into pots and sell them or whatever. But anywhere we were using leaf mold, which wasn't really leaf mold, it was just, you know, a bunch of leaves that weren't properly decayed yet because we're rushing everything on this homestead. Anywhere we put the leaves, acorns would sprout up, you know, all throughout the orchard or what have you. So this was leading to, you know, a very apparent problem. There was just oak trees everywhere. So I'm trying to kill those oak seeds. On top of that, I'm trying to make biochar. On top of that, I'm trying to smother this fire for the logs that are going to be biochar. The end result 3 days later, you're going to see soon in another homestead video. It was biochar acorns. It was really exciting, really, you know, incredible. Of course, we did lose a lot of mass. Some of them stuck around. Just about all of them were killed from the heat and just the boiling and all the stuff going on, right? These wouldn't be viable acorns. And if they were, perhaps they'd be very well suited for an area that is prone to forest fires. Anyway, you know, just kind of filling you in there with a little bit of the backstory. I'm digging into this way too early. You know, the main purpose of this is getting rid of those acorns, and I figured I'll make biochar with the excess wood we had laying around on top of that. Oh yeah, okay. So I'd say that's pretty good. The charcoal kind of infused with all this acorn charcoal. You can see that's an acorn. I mean, it just kind of obliterated. Let's see if we can find another one here. I don't know how hot these are, but yeah. So here's a piece of that charcoal. We still have a little bit unburned in there, but I think that's pretty good. You know, it's a lot better than what it was, and you can always just kind of chainsaw it into smaller chunks if they don't break all the way, and then throw that in the garden. We're gonna let this sit for a couple more days, kind of cool down, and then we'll dig into it further and show you. But overall, I think that's a success. You know, we made some biochar. Obviously a little inefficient, but it didn't require that much effort like it would digging a big hole and doing that whole deal. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.